Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to day 2 of Conspiracy Take the Crown previews. Now, we saw a whole bunch of cards yesterday. Actually, 19 new cards were revealed. Last week on Wednesday, we saw 1 new card, so far we've seen 20 cards. Today we have another 15 to look at, so these spoilers are coming out fast and furious, much like the Eternal Masters preview week. It's only 4 days, really, so they're going to go by really fast. And then on Friday, they're going to show the rest of the set. So what we'll do is the next couple days, we will do videos much like this one, where we're going to take the cards that were spoiled, compile them for you, do some quick analysis, and then starting on Friday, we'll begin our full set review, which is going to focus mostly on limited, a little bit of Eternal formats, but we'll focus on the limited structure of Conspiracy, much like we did with Eternal Masters as well. So having said that, we got a lot of cards to talk about, so we're going to jump in. I will say though, yesterday's video we talked a lot about mechanics. There's a lot of new mechanics here. Some of them are pretty complicated, so we're not going to do that today since we already went over that. But if you haven't seen yesterday's video, you may want to watch that one just to get a better grasp on the mechanics that you're going to see today. So let's get going with the first card, and it's the only Conspiracy card we have today. It's Hired Heist. It's a blue Conspiracy. It's also a hidden agenda one. Start the game with this Conspiracy face down in the command zone and secretly name a card. You may turn this Conspiracy face up anytime and reveal the chosen card. Whenever a creature you control with the chosen name deals combat damage to a player, you may pay a blue. If you do, draw a card. It appears there's a cycle of these, probably one for each color, and this is the blue one. They're all common Conspiracies, so they're not earth-shaking, but they do add a little bit of value. If you have the means to draft this, you get to the point where there's no better picks for the deck you're working on, this is going to be just fine. It's better, obviously, if you have maybe a couple commons of the same name in your deck, then you'll get a little more value out of it. But even if you just have one, you might find some value at some point. So nothing earth-shaking about these common Conspiracies. They're just kind of bread and butter, there if you need them and if they happen to work out. Next we have Ballot Broker. A white and 2 human advisor, 2/3. While voting, you may vote an additional time, and you can vote for different choices or the same choice. So there were some cards like this in the original Conspiracy, and they were actually a lot of fun. Now, voting was a little different in the last set because it seemed to be a situation where you voted for what a spell could do or where it was going to be directed, where this time it feels like the votes are more to enhance the spell or the creature that's coming into the battlefield. So your voting might not have as much of an impact as it did in the last Conspiracy, again just based on what we've seen so far, which isn't a whole lot, but it still could be quite good. Now if you happen to have some cards with voting, then wonderful, you're going to get some bonus out of this, but even if you don't, still a good limited creature. I mean, 2/3 for 3 is still very playable, and if an opponent has something where a vote is relevant, then you get some more value out of it. It's actually a pretty good card, I think, for the limited format. Next we have Custody Peacekeeper. It's a white and 2, 2/3 human cleric. Reveal Custody Peacekeeper as you draft it, and note how many cards you've drafted this draft round, including Custody Peacekeeper. Then you can pay a white and tap target creature with power less than or equal to the highest number you noted for cards named Custody Peacekeeper. I like this design a lot because this is a common that's going to make you really consider picking this over maybe some uncommons or even a rare. And the reason for this is it's a good card, and it's not going to come back to you. This is not a card that will wheel because it gets better every time it gets passed. So I find that pretty cool. I also like the idea that if you pick up 2 of these, you get the advantage of the best one you picked up in the round. So I think that's awesome. As far as drafting multiples of these, you don't get punished or anything. You're always going to get the best one from what you pick. So this is very interesting. I think it's a very skill-intensive draft card. I like what they've done with these cards that you reveal as you draft. They all really make you think, I think, pretty hard about what your move's going to be. Now, having said that, obviously, if you're not playing a draft format, whether that's Conspiracy, Take the Crown, or a Cube, then this is no longer a very good card. It's just a 2/3 for 3. Hallowed Burial. This is our first reprint of the day. 2 white and 3. It's a sorcery. This one's a rare. Put all creatures on the bottom of their owner's library. Now, this was originally printed in Eventide. Actually, it's never seen a reprint, believe it or not. This used to see some play out of sideboards in Modern back when Birthing Pod was a thing, because that deck ran a lot of persist creatures. So this deals with persist creatures. Now, back in those days, this was like a $10, $12 card. Since then, it's gone down. It's more like a $3, $4 card now, but I am glad to see it reprinted. It's a very good commander card. It's great to throw this in a cube, especially if you have a persist element or something like that you want an answer for. So it's good to see this reprinted. Eventide is one of those sets that was one of my favorites, actually, but I had a relatively low print run. It came out during a time that Magic was down a little bit, so you don't see a lot of these copies just floating around, so it's nice to get a reprint here. Next, we have a card that came to us from a Japanese language spoiler. Loosely translated, we think it's Protector of the Throne, a white and 5. This is a giant. When Protector of the Throne enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. If damage would be dealt to you, you may instead have that damage be dealt to Protector of the Throne. This is a 2/5. So you look at this and you say to yourself, this is a rare. Is it worth paying 6 for a 2/5? And in this case, I'm going to say yes, because of a couple of reasons. One, look at that second part closely. If damage would be dealt to you, you may instead have that damage be dealt to Protector of the Throne, not by one source, but damage. So anytime damage is coming at you all at one time, so an attack, for example, you get attacked by a bunch of flying spirit tokens, you can convert all that damage to the bodyguard. And of course this card will die, but it's almost like a fog effect for you, and it helps you keep the throne. It helps you keep the Monarch token longer, which is actually pretty cool. Secondly, you're paying 6, but you're also, unless something goes drastically wrong during your turn, getting a card draw at the end of the turn. That really pushes the value of this card, I think, over the top and makes it a really good limited card. Other than that, I can see even trying this out in Commander, especially if you have a play group that's playing with a lot of small token creatures or something like that. It does kind of double as a nice fog and really encourages people to probably attack other opponents as opposed to you, just because they're going to have to deal with this at some point. Next, we have Recruiter of the Guard, 1 white and 2, human soldier, 1/1. When Recruiter of the Guard enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card with toughness 2 or less, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. Okay, let me talk about kind of the elephant in the room first. At first glance, I think a lot of people thought this was a virtual reprint of Imperial Recruiter. If you're not aware, Imperial Recruiter was a card from Portal 3 Kingdoms that was only reprinted once as a Judge's promo, and as you can imagine, it's a very expensive card. Even though it wasn't uncommon in the set, it was just incredibly rare. And yeah, you're paying about $250, $300 for a copy of that card for the most part. That card sees play in Legacy in the Painter's Grindstone deck, and because of that, it is a very popular card. So I think a lot of times when folks just looked at this quickly, they thought, wow, is this a white version of Imperial Recruiter, which is a red card? However, if you look a little closer, Imperial Recruiter searches for a creature that's power 2 or less, where this is toughness 2 or less, which means it doesn't work with Painter's Servant. Painter's Servant's a 1/3, so Imperial Recruiter can tutor for the Servant. This cannot, and that's maybe a little disappointing, especially if you're just looking to pick up a card like Imperial Recruiter for those purposes. However, let's talk about this card for what it is. It's actually a good card, I think, for limited, as well as even maybe a good commander card. It's definitely a good cube card. I like cards like this that you put this down, okay, it's a 1/1. It's not super exciting, but it is a human soldier, which could be relevant in some situations. And then on top of it, you're getting more heat out of your deck. Even if it's a small creature, that small creature could be relevant to your game plan, or it might just be like a small flyer, like another card we're going to see here in a few minutes, which could be very powerful and help you beat down, maybe even help you get the Monarch token back because you have a creature with some evasion. So this is a good utility card, and it's great in its own right. It's just, I get it, it doesn't work, unfortunately, where I think a lot of us would have liked to have seen it work in Legacy. Throne Warden, 1 white and 1. It's a 2/2 human soldier. At the beginning of your end step, if you're the Monarch, put a +1/+1 counter on this. Good value card. It's a 2 casting cost, 2/2, so it's a bear with upside. You'll be happy to play this in limited, and even if you are inclined to try to make a Monarch commander deck, which I think they're giving you tools to do that with this set, this will be a great card in that deck as well. There's plenty of ways in white to get the throne back, to get the Monarch token back, whether it's a lot of small flying creatures or the melee mechanic or just playing cards that tell you to take the token back. There's a lot of ways to do it. This card will find some value at some point during the game. Wings of the Guard, white and 1/1 flying melee. This is a bird. Now, this is a good example of a card that might be good to get with the Recruiter. Now, it's a 1/1 for 2 with flying. However, even if you're not attacking with any other creature, this attacks as a 2/2. So that's actually pretty strong. Attacking in as a 2/2 flyer for 2 mana, yeah, sign me up. I'd be happy to take this all day long. This is a common, there'll be plenty of these around. And again, another example of how I think they're speeding up the gameplay a little bit. Again, because you're in a situation that you have a multiplayer draft format, it's very unique. As a matter of fact, if you played Conspiracy 1, you remember that a lot of times you built a 45 or 50 card deck because games could go really long. I think they're trying to speed up the game a little bit. It doesn't mean that you might be able to get away with a 40 card deck still. You might still need like 42, 45 cards. But I think they're trying to change it so you don't necessarily need like more than 50 cards in your deck, right? So I do feel like they're trying to speed up the game. They're trying to ensure early action, and it's actually pretty cool. I think it's going to make for a good format. Next we have Arcanesavant, 2 blue and 3, Human Wizard 3/3. Before you shuffle your deck to start the game, you may reveal this card from your deck and exile an instant or sorcery card you drafted that isn't in your deck. When Arcanesavant enters the battlefield, copy a card you exiled with cards named Arcanesavant. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Okay, you get a 3/3 for 5, not super exciting. However, as long as you're comfortable keeping an instant or sorcery that you feel will work well with this card in your sideboard, then when you do cast this card, you're going to get to play it for free. If it's a more expensive sorcery, then great, you're probably going to get some fine value out of it. Really, anything that costs 2 or more, you're going to get enough value out of it, I think. So this is just a fine card, I think, in Limited. It might be a fun card to throw in your cube because you could set it up with some really interesting instants and sorceries that we might not necessarily see in the actual Conspiracy set. So yeah, I like this. It's cool design. Again, it's going to make you think a little bit and really strategize around your deck building. Next we have Desertion, 2 blue and 3. This one is also a reprint. It's an instant. Rare, counter target spell. If an artifact or creature spell is countered this way, put that card onto the battlefield under your control instead of into its owner's graveyard. So this is a card that's been reprinted a handful of times. It was originally from Visions. It got a reprint 6th edition. It also was in Commander's Arsenal. That was the only time you could pick up a foil of it. They've always kept the same art. I'm glad they've continued to keep the art. Another opportunity to get a foil, so that's actually pretty cool. This isn't a card that sees tons of play or anything, but it's still a good Commander card. I think it's a good cube card in a lot of cubes. And the Commander's Arsenal version, not super expensive. I mean, if you can find a copy, they're kind of hard to find sometimes, but they're $10. It's not a whole lot, but it's still a nice inclusion. Custody Lich, 2 black and 3, Zombie Cleric 4/2. When this enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. Whenever you become the Monarch, target player sacrifices a creature. Again, this is another card that feels maybe a tad expensive at first glance, but then you have to think through it a little bit. Okay, I'm paying 5 for a 4/2. However, more than likely, I'm drawing a card at the end of the turn. Does that make it worth it? Yeah, I actually think that does make it worth it. And the fact that as the game goes on, I have the opportunity to maybe thin my opponent's army a little bit. Yeah, there's plenty of value to be had here. Great card for the Limited format. Pyroxene Arena, another reprint. 2 black and 1. It's an enchantment, another rare. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card, you lose a life. Anyone who's played with this card knows how powerful this is. Yes, you are basically trading life for card draw, but it's awesome, and it's really going to give you momentum, give you the cards you need to win the game and get there faster than your opponent, basically. This was originally printed in Apocalypse. It saw some reprints through the years. It was an 8th edition, it was a 9th edition. It was in a bunch of supplemental products. But even so, it was still like a $7 card. So this is actually a pretty nice inclusion. And forget about it if you want a foil, because even if you want an 8th or 9th edition foil, it'll run you about $45-50. If you want an original foil, it'll run you about $75-80. So here's another chance to get a foil Pyroxene Arena, and hopefully at an affordable price. So this is a very nice inclusion. I'd like to see it. Thorn of the Black Rose, a black and 3, 1/3 human assassin with death touch. When this enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. Again, this is another relatively economical creature. I mean, paying 4 for a 1/3 death toucher, okay, it feels a tad bit expensive, but then again, unless something goes drastically wrong, I'm drawing a card at the end of my turn. yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. And once you have this card, it's another card that's going to really help you perhaps get the crown back when you lose the token, because a lot of times opponents won't want to block a 1/3 Death Toucher with a creature that they feel is important to their board state. So it may allow you to garner some bonus value out of this card as the game drags on. One thing I will say, the art reminded me a little bit of Royal Assassin, and it got me thinking, could there be a Royal Assassin reprint in this set? I really hope so. It's one of my favorite cards from the old days, so I'd like to see it come back. I think that'd be fun. Alright, next we have another reprint. It's Burning Wish. 1 red and 1. It's a sorcery. This is another rare. You may choose a sorcery card you own from outside the game, reveal that card, and put it into your hand. Exile Burning Wish. Now this card, again, much like the other reprints we saw today, aren't on the super expensive side of things, but again, if you want a Burning Wish, it's going to run you around $7, and this was originally printed in Judgment, and it did see a promo, a Judge's promo version along the line, but not a whole lot of opportunities to pick up this card, and it does see play in Legacy. It's a key part to a lot of the Storm builds, so it does have a home there, and just in general, it's a really fun card, so I think this is a great inclusion, just another reprint I'm really happy to see. Last card of the day is Adriana, Captain of the Guard. White, red, and 3. Legendary creature, human knight, 4/4. She has melee, and she gives all your other creatures melee. So that's awesome. Now, first off, let me say, what I like about this, along with Queen Marchesa we saw yesterday, is these are cards that are going to be able to take the mechanics of this set and help you create very relevant commander decks. This is a card that could be a good commander that allows you to take the whole melee concept and idea in Boros in this set and convert it into a commander deck. I think that's awesome. So yeah, there's definitely a deck that could be had there. I'd love to kind of see, once we get the whole set together, what that will look like and kind of brew around a card like this. Also, as far as limited goes, it does appear, like I said earlier, that Boros is going to be the melee color, and she's definitely going to be kind of the lord. If you happen to open her in pack 1, she's definitely a draft around card to build that Boros deck, which actually seems like it could be quite aggressive and quite good. And really, when you think about it, you look at this mechanic, totally makes sense for Boros and what Boros is all about, right? So I think this was a good choice of a mechanic for that color combination. So having said that, those are the cards for today, and we will be back tomorrow with more preview cards. Again, much like today, we'll compile them all and give you some quick analysis. We'll do the same thing on Thursday. Friday, we'll start our full set review, looking at all the white cards and some of the multicolor cards, and we'll go through all the colors as we go through the rest of the week. So as always, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks as always for watching. This video, like all my videos, was made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Even a donation of $1 helps me to keep growing this community and creating better quality content for all of you. Check out our Patreon page for exclusive giveaways and future goals for the channel. If you haven't yet had a chance to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the MTG news, spoilers, set reviews, product openings, or finance videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.